I do appreciate Gino. But no, for all that talk, we kind of bury the lead locally. The fact that Miami makes an Elite Eight for the first time in program history, and none other than the one, the only, Jasmine Roberts, was their leading scorer throughout the course of the tournament. So
I
we're
love it.
going to catch up with her coming up at the 7 o'clock hour.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to her around 7:20. All right, last night's game. Taylor, you're not a big college basketball fan, men's or women's.
Correct.
So did you watch last night?
No. First of all, it was way too late.
Yes, let's
way
talk
too
about
late.
that. We can start with that.
Way
yes.
too late. I watched the Cubs, and then I was trying to make it. The Cubs game ended. I was like finishing dinner, taking
Isn't that
a
wild,
shower.
by the way? And we'll get to baseball later, but you can watch an entire baseball game because I did the same
We
thing
did.
before the national championship even
And
started.
I think first pitch was at like 6:20, so it was like obviously under 3 hours. And like I think it said 30 minutes less, which again we'll get to that later. But yeah, I watched the Cubs game. Literally like ate dinner, showered, and was like, oh, I really want to try to watch this, but I was so tired.
Well, worse yet, I mean, so the game doesn't tip off until 9:20. Then you consider the fact that people like myself want to stay up for one shining moment. It took them 38 minutes from when Brian Gumbel said, hey, we're going to, or Greg Gumbel, excuse me, when Greg Gumbel said, one shining moment's coming up next. It did not play for 38 minutes.
So what time did you go to bed after staying up for
12:10.
that? Okay.
Yeah. So
No, I wouldn't have
You
made
are
it.
you are a passionate person.
yeah.
I
I
will
love one
say-
shining moment.
I mean, I love everything about the Final Four, March Madness in general, but especially the Final Four. Jim Nance's last game, it was incredible to listen to. And for people who didn't watch, because if you don't have a dog in the fight, and most people around here didn't between San Diego State and UConn, I will say,
I feel like most people didn't.
yeah, exactly. Most people didn't. Probably once we got to really the Final Four.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there were any local ties once we got there. Not really. I mean, FAU sort of, but again, not where a big rooting interest like had it been a Florida or Florida State. But Adama Sanogo, Mia, I didn't know who he was before the tournament started. My goodness, is he really good?
I'm kind of surprised you didn't know, Lauren, because he absolutely lit up Florida earlier in the year.
Well, and I did watch that game, so I guess I had heard of him, but I mean, he
She
wasn't
blacked
on
that
my
part out.
radar.
yeah, she forgot about it. She tried to
my,
forget about
my basketball team was so bad, anybody could score big points on us.
Yeah, let's go back just for the sake of going back. In 20 minutes in that Florida game, Adama Sanogo, 17 points, 7 boards. So not quite the pain he inflicted on some other teams throughout the course of
Right.
this year. It also helps that his running mate Donovan Clingan, the other monster in the middle in the paint for the Huskies, also had 16 points and 8 boards in that game. So obviously having 2 7-foot towers and those guys, that was always going to be an advantage for UConn. But Sonogo's story, it speaks to a lot of things. It's been really interesting to see a couple of the other big NBA, not just college basketball, but NBA draft pundits, like looking back at this UConn team. And I really liked this one from Sam Vecini of The Athletic, who said that UConn, when you look back at it, really built a perfect modern basketball team, enormous across the board, great floor spacing, fast on defense, elite rim protection, elite rebounding. But the bigger thing, to your point about Sonogo, is that they went 5 for 9 on recruits in the last 3 years, 6 being legit very high-level hits, and that, of course, includes Sonogo, Hawkins, Clingan, Carabon, the redshirt freshman out of Massachusetts, the stretch four, Andre Jackson. So the fact of the matter is that they identified talent. I mean, Sonogo came to the United States 5 years ago from Mali. They identified talent, and so often with some of these overseas talents, you're really not sure how it's going to pan out. But they found the talent both locally, like I said, Caraban's from Massachusetts, Clingan's from right down the road from Stores, and they were able to capitalize on it and develop it. So it's a tribute to UConn that they were able to not only find the measurables, but also find guys that worked in their system.
Yeah, and for people who don't remember, Florida played UConn way back on December 7th with Colin Castleton. UConn won by 21 points. That was with Florida's best player. It was 75 to 54.
And that was with Colin Castleton, Riley Kugel, who is coming back to Gainesville in case you're just joining us, by
Right.
the way, and Alex Fudge, all scoring in double figures. It didn't matter.
No, if Castleton didn't play, like if they had played as one of the last games of the year, which they wouldn't have because those are going to be conference games, but still, if they had, then I think UConn would have won. Without Colin Castleton, I think UConn would have won by 50. That's the difference between their team and the Florida team. But congratulations to UConn. And, I mean, there's certainly no debate that this is now a blue blood in college basketball. No debate whatsoever. They have as many titles as some of the great teams. They have as many as Duke and Indiana. And they have more than Kansas, Villanova, and Louisville. That means you are a blue blood. They've won 5 titles since 1999. So certainly congratulations to the Huskies, and we'll see it. I would expect them to get very far in next year's tournament. Obviously, things can change. But I certainly didn't have UConn on my radar. I should have. Brian actually tells me when we watched that Florida UConn game, he's like, "Oh, that's one of the best teams in the country." And obviously, I was not paying attention because it was still football season, Taylor. But I should have listened.
Yeah, and we obviously we do our bracket around here, and
Who won?
I won, and only reason is because I did my first round. I barely missed anything in the first round,
Okay.
and it helped that no one had one of those. I think maybe one person had UConn, but no one else had any of the Final Four.
Okay.
So that helped because in the way we do it, obviously it increases each round. So I double it, so it's 1, 2, 4, 8. And so it gets higher. So if you're not getting if you get a ton in the first couple rounds, which somehow happened for me, but then it collapsed after that, and I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. And I came back over the weekend, and I was like, oh, no one picked any of the winners, so we're kind of good with this. But then I have a friend who's some people are so invested. I know Mia spends a lot of time on her bracket also of all of the analytical stuff. Not me. I just kind of am okay, here's the more popular upsets, and I'll pick a couple of those randomly, and I'll go through sometimes I'm a little biased and I will never pick Arizona ever again because they screwed me majorly a few years ago in my bracket. So now I'm just nope, not you, not happening. But I had a friend send me this and I just wanted to read it because it was really interesting. And he's very into okay, this team can do this and here's the number for this. So he sent me this screenshot and this was after I did my bracket. And I was like, thanks for not giving me this this advice before. But it was kind of a breakdown of how to possibly pick the winner more so. So last 32 champions had more assists than turnover. And it was a combination of all these things have led to the winner. And the majority, it was something crazy, 20 of the last 24 or something like that. But last 32 champs had more assists than turnovers. 31 of the last 2 champs had a head coach with Sweet 16 experience. 26 of the last 27 champs went into the tournament with at least 3 wins versus teams in the top 10%. The last 27 champs had a top 75 strength of schedule. 19 of the last 20 champs were in the top 20 in adjacent offensive efficiency.